Hey everyone, Mango7Roll here. How we doing today? Welcome to another Epic 7 video. We're gonna do a spotlight on Kise here. As you know, or maybe you don't know, the summon video yesterday, I did summon for Kise. I wasn't sure if I was going to. Honestly, the only reason I did was because her design. I love how elegant she looks. I like how she sits in the tavern. And of course, she is Kise, so like, what more can you say? But it turns out she's really good. I'm really enjoying her, and I'm loving where she's being used. So the first things first is our stats. Let's just take a look. She's level 53 of 60 right now. I did 6-star her last night. Her stats are pretty trash. Like, she's got some pretty good pieces of gear, but she's also got some pretty bad pieces of gear. So this is the weapon on her, obviously pretty insane, but then we get her helm, which is just atrocious. Then we get her chest, which is even worse. So these two are just there for the set bonus. I don't recommend that. I just had nothing else to do, so this is what I ended up with. I'm also using speed boots instead of attack boots, and I think these are kind of hindering me because I'm going after my Falcon or Clury a lot of times because my Clury's built so bad too. And then we have our ring here just for a broken set, and then we have our other necklace here just for a broken set as well. When you're gearing Kise, and this is the same for basically every single attacker, you want to gear for the same stats basically, unless they scale off something specifically. You want to gear for attack, you want to gear for crit damage, you want to gear for critical hit rate, and you want to gear for speed. Those four are all super important. And from that point, depending on what else you need, whether it's effectiveness for something like Kise's third skill, or it's defense or something like that, whatever else you need, you kind of fill in later with your gaps. Her skill set is another thing that's just really fantastic about her. I wasn't really sure on this, and this is why when people see new units and ask me if they're good, I can't really say because you never know what their multipliers could be. This same skill set could have came out with worse multipliers, and she could be much worse. So we just don't know until we can test it out. Her first skill seems pretty solid. It does insane amounts of damage to anything with barrier. Pro tip: Wyvern is barrier, and we'll see that in a second. A Dark Scar penetrates defense by 60% if the caster is stealth, and she's basically always stealth after you use her third. I'm not so happy with this skill. I think it's pretty weak and it doesn't seem to do much damage. There's a lot of talk about it being bugged on Reddit as well. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but it's possible the multiplier on this is just so low that it doesn't really make a difference. And then there's the third, which is Nocturne. Really cool looking ability, and I really like this, and this puts you into stealth as well. So I do recommend, if you're going to Mulligora, go for the -1 cooldown here, and then just get a couple points here and there to get some extra damage dealt. Nothing else too important. The 1 turn cooldown, if this does turn out to be much better, is definitely worth it though, especially if you're going to use her for something like Banshee, where you want to AoE a little bit more. So that's super important to think about. And this is something I do with all of my characters that I use a lot, is just 1 Mulligora for that little upgrade is super fine and super okay to do. Okay, that's about it for her skills there. The other thing with her stats too is effectiveness is kind of important on her. I only have 14%, and it's not really enough to land her third skill, which does skill cooldown by 2 turns when you land it. So if you get something like 50% effectiveness or something just as substats, you can land this much more often towards Wyvern or something like that. And yes, it does work versus a lot of bosses. So I'm just loving that so far. Her awakenings are pretty solid too. This is how far mine is. This is crit chance. I think this is attack, which I'll get later today. I have these, but not these. And then this one here, we are 3 blessings or blazing souls away from this one as well. And I'll be getting that later today when I get my 3 blazing souls in 20 minutes. So that's that. As for whether or not she was worth pulling, honestly, it was really risky for me. And I think that's a lot of what people are asking right now, is whether or not she was worth it. And so far, I think yes, just because of what she's been able to do to me to Wyvern. I've never had somebody out-damage my Araminta before, especially considering she was out-damaging my Araminta at level 47 or something like that. So let's just do a run here, and not to mention my Araminta's gear is much better. Like, if we just take a look here over CP, I don't really like using CP as a guideline, but just to give you an idea, my Araminta's at 53,000 CP. I have the hiccups. I always get the hiccups when I do this. And Kise's at 50,000. Okay, so she's actually pretty close in CP. but her stats are not there. Just these two pieces just hold her back so much. But yeah, let's go take her for a run. I'll show you how she does in Wyvern 9. And the other cool part is I don't need a defense breaker. I've been trying to do this with two different teams. One has been this one here, and one has been Yuna instead of Clury. Both work just fine, but I find Clury to be faster on average, because if you land that defense break, it just goes so much better. The other thing to note here is Araminta is going to do a good amount of the damage on the ad phase here. And I really need to figure out my webcam. I bought a new webcam and it just always just blurs me out. It pisses me off. I have autofocus off. I have no idea what's going on. But it is what it is. So, yeah, I can't say enough good things about her so far. And I think once I actually get good gear on her, she's just going to demolish everything. She hasn't done as well for me in PvP as I'd like, but I think it's because my crit rate is just so poor. I can't realistically get kills going. You can see there we missed 2 out of the 3 crits on her second skill there. Whereas Araminta is just padding the damage right now like she always does. So while we watch this work here, it's important to really consider a couple things here while you're wanting to know if you should summon for your Kise. The first one is it's not a limited banner. So if we get a limited banner soon after this, which I don't think we will, you're probably going to have to spend a good amount of money to get that limited person, unless you're really lucky. So keep that in mind. That's one thing you really need to consider. The other thing is the artifact that comes along with Kise is just not good. It's just not good at all. And speaking of artifacts, I forgot to cover artifacts. So I'm using Dust Devil on mine. I think R and L works fine. I've also heard Elsa's Knife or whatever it's called works. I've also heard Wind Rider works. There's a ton of different things that do work with her, but I just like Dust Devil because it's the only one I have. And I like the possibility of just doing a ton of extra damage. Like if I proc Dust Devil when the Wyvern has Defense Break, it's just insane, like super insane. So, what was I talking about there? Yeah, the problem with summoning right now for her is you share with that trashy artifact. So you have like over a 50% chance when you get a 5-star to get that artifact instead of Kise. So keep in mind, this is one of those games you're not going to get every 5-star unless you're incredibly lucky or spend a lot of money. So if it's not really worth risking for you, I really think it might be okay to pass her by. I've also heard reports that she is the same sort of setup as Lorena, but she does more damage than Lorena does. Just look at that. That's so insane. She does more damage than Lorena does, even on single target fights without barriers, so that's another thing to consider. And this should show you a pretty good example of her strengths here. Just, like, I can't even imagine what she would do with Araminta's gear. She's just chunking this guy here. And that's a big problem with Araminta right there. When she does that second skill without a burn, I wish the AI did not use the second skill unless they had burn, because that lost a lot of damage for Araminta there. As for Wyvern 10, I haven't tried if I can do it yet, but I don't think I can with this team yet. I think I could replace Angelica for Diene if mine was built a little better. And we did kill it before the second spawn here, or the second shield. So let's take a look at the damage statistics here. I have a feeling Kise just trounced Araminta. And if you've ever watched my stream, this is not how this is supposed to work. My Araminta kills everybody in damage. Like, she never, ever has this happen. This is the first time she's ever realistically been out-damaged, especially when you consider there is a trash wave at the start where Araminta is going to get most of her damage from. So just showing you this, and if you're somebody who watches the stream and knows what my Araminta can do, this should be enough here to show you how insane she is at the Wyvern. And the other thing is, you don't even need Defense Break, right? Like, because she does so much damage to the shield, you do not need to bring Defense Break. And obviously it helps, but you can bring somebody else and be fine anyway. Like, I used Yuna instead of Clury, and the runs worked just fine. I never really failed, so super impressive there. I'm not sure what else there is to say about her. I guess final verdict is I am incredibly impressed. I thought at the start of this, she was going to be just primarily a PvP unit. I guess we could do a one PvP thing to show you guys too. I thought she was going to be a PvP unit, but she really, like she is, but that's not where I'm using her. Just because mine isn't built right, so let's take her for a spin here and see what happens. And if you do burn her skill 1 against a shield, it does insane amounts of damage. And you can see why my Clury's gear sucks and why speed boots are not the best on her right now for me, because I go after Clury. If Clury went first and defense downed anybody, we'd basically have a GG here. So only having that 50% chance to crit really makes this difficult, because we didn't crit there. And the other cool part that I wasn't even noticing until I started using her skill 3 is in the final picture of the animation of her skill 3, she's actually facing towards the screen instead of backwards. It just looks so amazing. Okay, I just want to get one burn and hope we crits here, but I'm pretty sure Araminta's just going to clean house.
What are you gonna do?
We got a... Did we get the provoke on that Destina, or was that... That was Clury, right? Yeah, that was Clury. Okay, I thought we randomly got that. We did just pick up... does anybody have a shield? So one person has a shield. I'm not sure how much damage this does. We don't have attack buff. And we have like a 50% chance to crit with this gear. Okay, so I don't know how much damage that does. I don't know if it shows, like, adds in the damage before the barrier there. But you can see that did pretty well considering her gear. And of course she's stealth as well, so she's mostly safe. 6k there to Destina, and that's her weak elemental advantage. We did get lucky enough to crit, but that just kind of shows her damage here. I think Araminta is still out damaged. Oh, she didn't. Okay. So I'm continually impressed by Kise, and I don't think she's a requirement like DN was in terms of how useful she is, but I think she's going to be fantastic in all aspects of the game, just with the damage output she puts out. I think she's going to be really good for raids and stuff too, because she can silence bosses, from what I understand, and that's going to really help out. So yeah, that's about all I should say about Kise here. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope I laid it out well enough for you to understand about her. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe as always, and let me know in the comment below if you summoned for her and what you plan to use, where you plan to use her for. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody.